Hi, everyone. This is Jay Moore, and I just wanted to give a heads up on my new podcast coming out with Hail Varsity Magazine, hailvarsity.com. It is going to be called the More To It podcast. My idea behind this is I don't stay in touch with my teammates enough and people who have played integral parts of my life. So I said, you know what, let's get a hold of people. Let's chit-chat. Let's talk. Talk about our time spent in Nebraska. Talk about time spent in NFL. Talk about whatever it may be. And I thought everyone would enjoy listening to it. And so more to it. It's going to be a weekly podcast on hailvarsity.com. Look forward to you all listening. So just wanted to give a heads up on my first episode. It's with Doak Ostergard, the head football trainer at my time when I was at Nebraska. He was the head trainer from 1997 to 2007. And we just sit down and talk about his time spent at Nebraska, my interactions with him, good stories, Scott Frost stories, Jason Peters stories, Tom Osborne stories. Be sure to tune in, listen. You'll be sure to enjoy it. Well, this is the very first edition of the More To It podcast with Hail Varsity, hailvarsity.com. I am honored to that he decided to join me today. The man, the myth, the legend, Doak Ostergard.
You have to let everybody know who that is.
He would give me a hard time before we started that, you're not sure people are going to know who you were. I'm like, Doak, you were the head football trainer for. I mean, how many years were you the head football trainer?
Football.
Well, you took over solely in '95.
Well, Jack Nicolai did it for 2 years, and then I took it over in 90 for the '97 season. But mainly with football in there for like 20 years. But still, trainers are behind the scenes, under the radar. That's where I like to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's put it this way: you could probably call T.O. right now, and he'd pick up and not the second ring. So
he'll pick anybody. He's old school.
Yeah.
The phone rings.
Does he text?
Answer.
Can you text T.O.?
He texts.
He will.
He texts. Yeah.
Wow.
Might take him a little while to get back to you, but he's quicker on a phone call. Text message takes longer.
That's totally understandable. I mean, you're from. We're both big. Obviously, we'll get into football and our time at Nebraska, but we're two big, huge golf guys, and you're from Gothenburg. So normally, if I'm gonna do this, I'm like, what the hell is the guy doing in Gothenburg, Nebraska? But I know exactly if you and I went to Gothenburg, Nebraska, where we're going and where we're spending all day, if not a whole weekend, and that's playing golf at Wild Horse.
Yeah. And do people know how good a golfer you are?
I don't know. I try hard at it. I work hard at it. I love going out there. I always play good at Wild Horse. That's why I like going out there. It's one of my favorite, not only favorite golf courses.
67 from the tips last time he played, folks. That's pretty salty.
That when I played with you.
Yeah.
In the last.
Not the tournament.
Yeah, that was a casual round. The state Mid-Am was there last summer, and I shot 76. Conditions were a little tougher than that one day. I think there wasn't a breath of wind when you and I played last time. But I mean, how cool! You go back home. I mean, did you know how cool a golf course that was going to be when they said, "Hey, we're going to build a golf course in Gothenburg, Nebraska"?
No idea. The old course, you could only play about half the time because it was lower level and soggy all the time. This is up in the sandier terrain, and the very first golf course in Gothenburg was up pretty close to that. So those folks might have known, but still, I don't even know if the people that started off with the idea had any idea how good it'd be, but it's really good, and of course it's kind of biased when people hear from me, so when they hear
but I mean, I've talked to guys who came through. So for instance, now that the Corn Ferry's in Omaha at Indian Creek, so as last year, 2 years ago, they had an event in Colorado or somewhere west where guys
Idaho, I think.
Yeah, or something, but they drove. And they had stopped, and guys were like, holy smokes, like, this is one of the best golf courses I've ever played. And these guys have played, Division I, high-level college golf, and obviously all over the nation playing professionally. And they're like, this is the best golf course I've ever played. And we have it we're spoiled here. You go out west with the golf courses we have between the Sandhills and Prairie Club and Dismal River. But you got to put it in there, and it's so affordable to go play.
Yeah. I ran across to two of the guys from the Corn Ferry Tour They were in the clubhouse last summer and talking to them a little bit. I didn't know they'd changed the name to Corn Ferry. Like, who came up with that name?
Yeah.
But,
Money sponsors that.
Yeah. But asked them how they like the course. This is better than anything we play.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, and the listeners, if you haven't had a chance, and if you are golfers, you got to make what is it, 245 if you're doing about 80.
You can go from exit to exit, Lincoln to there. If you go, we can't say it. State Patrol might be listening. But if you go like 81, you can make it in 2 hours and 20 minutes exit to
Really?
exit. Yeah.
Omaha, it's probably
No stops.
At an hour.
Yeah, depending where you're coming from in Omaha.
Yeah.
So do you think you're a better golfer or football player now?
Oh man, I don't know. I feel awful saying golfer, but I enjoy practicing, working at golf than I ever did playing football. I said if I could go back and do it. I mean, it was a childhood dream for me to play football at Nebraska. Loved every minute of being there. But if I could go back and do it, I would have loved to play golf growing up. My parents weren't golfers. I thought golf was a dorky game growing up. I had buddies that kind of played it, and I thought they were kind of the spoiled, rich country club kids. We were more a middle class family, and that we'd go out there every now and hit balls, but mainly you'd hit some drivers as hard as you can and get some ice cream and go hang out by the pool.
Yeah. Usually not enough action when you're little in golf.
No. I mean, yeah, ADD kicks in, and yeah, you're wishing you run around or playing video games. But I got hooked.
Well, just to give the folks some reference, you played in a tournament. I don't know, would it have been the city tournament at Pioneers a couple years ago?
Yeah. Yep.
Shot a really good score.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the local pros who knows good golf when he sees it, he said that might have been the best round he'd ever witnessed. So
that was the best round I've ever played. It was a bogey-free. I don't like to pat myself on the back, but it was a bogey-free 64. They always say it could have been a couple better, but yeah, that's one of those rounds where, and I'm sorry, but obviously we'll get to football, people, trust me, but we're two
way
golf
better
guys.
What happened at Firethorn when you were 20? What tournament was it?
Oh God, now you got to bring that up. Yeah, the USAM qualifier.
Golf,
right, USAM qualifier 2 years ago, or I was the 29 hole leader, and I happened to absolutely choke and hit a cart path, go out of bounds, make a double, part of the next hole. Then I hit another cart path that goes out of bounds. I was 8 or 9 under through 29 holes. I think I ended up shooting like 2 under total, and it was an alternate and didn't get in. The USAM was at the Pebble. I played with Alex Shockey that day, who was the qualifier, and he shot a bogey free. Didn't make a bogey at Firethorn for 36 holes. That's the most impressive golf I've ever seen playing competitively. So no, golf's been good. I blame Doak.
Well, now, hey, we can't leave out my dear old mom, right?
Yeah.
Introduced you to.
Yeah, peaches and cream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought everybody in Nebraska knew about peaches and cream.
Well, I've had peaches and like cottage cheese and but no, like you had the legit, like not the peaches like the canned ones. You got like the legit good ones that came from Colorado.
Yeah, you get fresh ones, and you scald them so you take the skin off them, slice them up, a little powdered sugar and some cream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
Jay he'll visit anybody if you fix that for him.
Yeah, it's a treat. So I suppose we can transition during the football now, and just, there's so many ways we can go here, but for this, my idea with this pod was, honestly, I came up with it just a few weeks ago. I ran into Zach Bowman up in Omaha, and I hadn't seen Zach in forever, and I just all my former teammates and guys. Because whether it's the coaching staff, the training staff, former players, anybody you didn't play, it was just kind of a giant family. So you catch up with them, like, man, what's going on? And I'm like, this would be a good podcast just to do this. I
hear Zach's a little easier to catch now than he used to be.
Well,
Zach, if you're listening, we'll have to get you straightened out.
He has a hard time responding to text messages and phone calls.
No, I've heard he's in a few LBs.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, he has.
He's a linebacker.
Yeah, he's put on a few pounds. He's coaching over at Midland. He needs to start doing some more drills with those DBs and get running around a little more. But we're just tell stories. I mean, you're the head football trainer for.
We got to talk one more story about
Okay.
Zach. Zach's a phenomenal athlete, right? He come in and he looked the part and everything you'd want in a prototypical DB. We were working with him in rehab, and I swear to goodness, I threw him the football as part of one of the drills. His hands went like this. They crossed. That's hard for people that understand probably, but he crossed his arms and had a hand on the opposite sides to catch the ball for some reason. I'd never seen anybody try and do that before.
He did it on purpose.
I think no. It wasn't like to try and make it more difficult. It's just that's how he was going to catch the ball. So freak athlete that I don't.
That one's because Zach and he came from a JUCO and he was going to come. He was going to be a first-round talent. He was a first-round draft pick if he doesn't get hurt going into our senior year.
Yeah.
And we were really good already defensively. We could have been even better with his help. But no, just a phenomenal guy, and just to have him, come from like New Mexico Military Academy.
He jumped around. I think he was originally from Alaska.
Yep.
And he was down in New Mexico, but he was North Carolina. Makes me think that he was.
Was his dad in the military?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we'll get Zach on the pod, but
he can defend himself.
Yeah, he can. Yeah, it'll be good. So for you to, I think it's only fair for you to tell stories and all the things. I mean, we got stories. We'll have T.O. stories, Scott Frost stories, Jason Peters stories. We go in a row, but I gotta, bring up some stories that stick out in my mind. Now I gotta, and the one that comes to my mind right away, and it's gonna make fun of myself. Do you remember my official visit at Nebraska?
Honestly, what the first interaction I remember about the Moore family, right? You had seen Dr. Clare prior.
Yeah, he did I tore my ACL my senior year of high school, and Dr. Clare did the surgery.
And what I remember, I'd never met you, I'd never met your parents, but Dr. Clare came and said, boy, his dad walked in, looked like he could play today. That's my first memory.
Okay, but let me refresh you. So my official visit would have been, it would have been 2001. You guys were getting ready to play in Miami in the national championship game, Rose Bowl.
Okay, yeah.
So being an Elkhorn guy, my host was Kyle Ringenberg. So we went out for a little bit Friday, but nothing crazy. You guys they had practice the next day, but he's like, don't worry.
And Kyle's a doctor.
Yeah, I know.
But
he's Elkhorn guys, we.
That's all the more reason. It's hard to believe he's a doctor.
Well, so she's gonna have to get Kyle on now to defend himself. Good Lord. But so I had the surgery I think in October, so I am a couple months, in. I'm walking, but obviously the strength, the mobility, and so we go out, and I'm loving it. Kyle's taking me out, and we're going to house parties, and. I'm having beers, and the next thing I know, I'm at this big house party, and I see Jamie Burrow walking around. He has this big bottle of wine, and like this. So I'm drinking. Let's just
Darwin.
Yeah.
Self-proclaimed Darwin.
Yeah, correct.
Most intelligent person.
I'm just.
Now you have to get Jamie on.
We will. We'll get him on. And short. They had to take me home early. I had a little too much to drink. It's one of the few times that I've literally woke up the next morning. I'm like, where the hell am I? So we go to breakfast the next morning. We're staying at the Cornhusker Marriott, and we have to go with the coaching staff. And I'm miserable. I'd thrown up. I'm in very, very rough shape. So I can hardly eat. I order like a fruit plate. I take like one bite of strawberry. I have to go throw up. So,
anybody from the staff with you there?
Oh yeah, the whole coaching staff was there.
Okay.
Coach Solich, the whole coaching staff was there. And my parents, they get a kick out of it. Just like, you dumbass, like you did this to yourself. But I had to go over to meet with you, and you put me through a Cybex test. And if everyone haven't been through a Cybex, so it's a test to test strength in knees, mainly ACL surgery knees, and it's like a leg extension machine, but you do it about as hard as you can for a minute.
Yeah. Well, so that machine is set up so it's going to only allow X number of degrees of range of motion per second, right? So no matter how hard you're pushing against it, it's only going to go. So if it's supposed to be 60 degrees per second, that's all it's going to go. And you had be done a variety of speeds there. And the first couple probably didn't bother you too much because then those were just for fewer reps. I can't remember. But the last one is at a higher pace, and this is for extension and flexion, so up and down all the way. And we expect maximum effort, and you have to go for 20 reps on each leg. So that, even somebody that's not in the condition you were will struggle with that a little bit.
Yeah. So
did you throw up after that?
I did. So down, I can picture it just down in the old South Stadium. Training room, and that Cybex in the corner, and you guys had that little bathroom where you had the rehab area. So I'd do that, and of course, the next thing I do, I have to go through. I don't even know. I threw up all night from drinking too much. I threw up after breakfast. I'm like, how do I have anything else to throw up? I go in there and throw up again. My mom and dad are just like chuckling, and I'm sure you're giggling. You're getting a kick out of it because I'm
sure your quads were about to explode too.
Well, I mean, that's the first time I've been through one. I'd been doing rehab, but it's like I hadn't never done anything that strenuous. I mean, I wasn't pretty much able to move for a couple of months. So we leave, and I am a mess. So we walk back out of the South Stadium, and I throw up again before we get in the car. I mean, I was a mess. I don't think I drank anything for months. I couldn't eat. The smell of beer, of anything, made me want to gag. And I honestly think I remember drinking Southern Comfort that night, and I haven't been, just until like 3 or 4 years ago, I was able to drink whiskey again. I was ruined from it.
Well, that's part of our goal is to keep you from drinking.
Well, that didn't work. But that was one of the most, oh boy, that's like the first, I'm like, I have another good one, but that was like my first experience with Doak, and you don't remember that.
And the training.
I mean, as far you did so many Cybex tests and the visual visits, and they all blend into one. But I'm you'd have to remember that one because I did it. I puked and then puked again.
You're giving me too much benefit of the doubt. I didn't realize you were throwing up.
Yeah. Oh.
But I saw plenty of guys that because the recruiting back then, you would see everybody on an individual basis. So it wasn't a group. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of, I felt like, man, this is really boring for the athletes because you have to come in and you're going to hear about the training room. Well, you've already seen the nightlife, you've seen, the coaches and watch film, and you're going to come to the training room like this. And especially if you've had a rough night, there's plenty of guys in there not very enthused. So we had to change that up a little bit. We brought them in all at once. But it's always fun to hear somebody's first interaction and what sticks with them.
So this is my next, because I could get my stories out of here just so I can now let you tell funny stories about everyone else. The next story. So I come in, I'm all rehab for my surgery, and first training camp my freshman year. And you think I was pretty tough. I was pretty mentally tough, and I was so not. I had no idea because you go through 2 days. I mean, they only have 2 days now in football. But back then, it was legit pads in the morning, pads in the afternoon.
It's probably half pads afternoon.
Yeah, but you're still pads.
Still pads.
I mean, there's really no difference for D linemen, anyways.
Because that was the old pro, and for a lot of years it was 9 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. Yeah. But then during the 90s, that switched and go earlier, and then it got moved around. So I don't recall where it had been.
Well, I just know. I mean, 2 days in high school at that time, you didn't have meetings. You didn't, and let's not forget, in high school, you could get around pretty easily because you're just better than everyone else. In that case, I was not. I mean, I was bottom of the totem pole, learning a new position. Like, I remember waking up in the dorm, like, what the hell am I doing? I don't know if I'm going to make it. I remember, and I was soft. Like, I was a soft 18-year-old kid. I have no problem admitting it. I remember I got like a good AC joint bruise or a shoulder bruise. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can get like the afternoon practice off. And I remember coming and I saw you, and I'm like, yeah, my shoulder's kind of bugging me, and you're testing out mobility. Okay, get some ice and stem on it, whatever. And I'm just kind of hoping, maybe he's gonna let me get the afternoon off, because I am just like I just don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it.
Who were the offensive tackles like you'd have been going
against? My gosh, it would have been. Well, I was younger, so I mean, but I would probably still have been going against. I know sometimes they did. 1s versus 3s and sometimes, but God, the starting offensive tackles in the 2002 season, Dan, Billy Waldrop.
Yeah.
Kyle Coulterman would have been there, who I hated. He was a
A lot of people mixed it up with
yeah.
yeah.
God, who would have been the other ones?
Nate Coulterman.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was thinking Kyle Cole Morgan. He got other Nate Coulterman.
Cole Morgan.
Yeah, yeah. But he was gone before I got there. I'd heard plenty of stories about him, but they were the same way. God, who else? Who would have been the? Why am I? I know like John Garrison was a center. Yeah. That's blank. I mean that my freshman year was kind of a blur. I can't remember who the other guys would have been.
I just wondered if you recalled who was giving any beat downs.
Oh, I got my ass kicked. Just because I was a new position. I never played defensive end. I played stand-up defensive, like outside, but I never played it.
And running back.
Yeah, yeah. So I was raw. But anyway, so I was hoping I was going to get some sympathy from Doak. And he goes, if this practice, he goes, if it was the national championship, would you be able to play? And I go, yeah. He goes, well, it's the national championship. Go out there and practice. I go, I go, no, zero sympathy. So I had to go out. I went out and practice, and yeah, I think I might have squeaked out like one. I missed like maybe like a Saturday. I think it got a little worse. I think I got hit again. I think I missed a Saturday scrimmage, which if you're going to practice, you want to do the Saturday scrimmages, but I think that's about the only one I was able to. So there's another. Doak, you weren't too
not too sympathetic.
No, zero sympathy. You didn't want to get. Well, let's put it this way: you didn't want to be hurt because Doak's rehab exercises and training was way harder than practice.
That's all by design.
Yes.
That was all years ago when I first started. There was Monday Childs, right? They were called Monday Child, and that goes clear back to Rogier and Fryer and some of those guys, and they played well and got beat up on Saturday. Monday was kind of an optional day, and they'd show up in their street clothes, and I just remember thinking, this is not very helpful for the rest of the squad to see these guys out there, So eventually we got a big enough staff, then we introduced what was called reconditioning, and reconditioning filled in like, all right, you might be healthy enough, you don't need to be in the training room, but you're not healthy enough to be out on the field. We're going to fill that gap in with something. And one of the things that we always knew we could do in there, aside from help the injury, we'd challenge the injury enough to get it better, but we knew we could work on mental toughness and work capacity, and that would be a self-motivating for a lot of guys. Perfect example: Thunder Collins came in, and Coach Starlickman told us he was going to be the next Lawrence Phillips. He wore number 1, and
you can see it, bigger, taller.
Yeah,
not as
from
big.
California, and he'd bounced around, and you never know what you're going to get. New guy comes in, just like when you come in. We're finding out, right? That's part of the deal. And back then, I don't know if they can still do it nowadays, because you have to worry about everybody's feelings and everything. But part of the deal is you're going to get bigger, faster, stronger, but you're going to get tougher. And there's only one way to get tougher. And in all honesty, Jay, you weren't going to be playing on Saturday, so this was your development time to get tougher.
Right.
And there were actually people that were practice players. A lot of guys wouldn't want to hear that, especially big time recruit coming in. But their role was to be available Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Tough days of practice. Not everybody wants practice. They could rest on
Saturday,
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, and they didn't want to hear that. But anyhow, Thunder Collins. We're out there on the first, doing some kickoffs. It's the first scrimmage, really, that he's there for. And I'd just gotten out on the field. We're in the stadium. I'm coming up out of the South Stadium, and he's at the north end getting ready to return a kickoff. And he takes off, and you can hear a couple of good pops, but nothing super serious, just... Well, my assistant, Derek Clark, is about at the 50-yard line. And Thunder goes down. He's rolling around out there. And so Derek runs down. He gets to him before I do. And Thunder's rolling around. And Derek's like, Thunder, what's wrong? Thunder, what's wrong? And he's holding on to both his shins. And then pretty soon he lets go of the shin. He reaches up and grabs Derek by the collar and pulls him down. He says, D, I think I broke both my legs. All right, we don't have much. We're not real familiar with them.
Right.
We're like, okay, the odds of that aren't very good. We could probably palpate a fraction, but it's like he was done. Okay, your first time, you're gonna get one. The next day, true to form, he's supposed to be in for treatment, and you know how that is.
Mm-hmm.
People, if you're hurt, you're supposed. If you miss
don't
treatment,
miss
you don't
treatment,
get. You don't want to get. He didn't make it in, and then he comes hobbling in shortly before practice, and at that time, Derek was in charge of the reconditioning, and I said, all right, Derek, the x-rays were fine, but we want to make sure he understands that we don't want him to miss practice, even if he is a little sore. So, still didn't know his personality and his toughness level and everything, but I said, we can have him walk stairs. So he went in the South Stadium, and I said, just don't let him stop. And so he went up and down, up and down, and up and down. And by golly, the next day he said, I'm not missing practice. So it's effective.
I only had one. I had one your reconditioning. I remember I tweaked the knee in spring ball to where we thought I tore something. It ended up not being anything, but I had to do one. And I'm just like, oh my God. No, never again. You don't want to be hurt. I mean, even to when, I think I could count on probably one hand how many practices I actually missed in college. I was fortunate enough, until I turned pro, and then I got hurt all the time.
And from my perspective, that's a huge benefit when you've got guys showing up at the stadium and they're just planning on going out to the field. Because if it's somebody like, I'm not sure, I might have this ache or pain or whatever, well, how much effort are you going to put into practice then? So if they know, and we had a stretch in there, especially like 97, we'd hardly had anybody hurt. We were super healthy. The year before, we were super beat up. Next year, we were super healthy. And then it helps when you got everybody, leaders on the team that buy into that too. And so a fun little thing that kind of just happened, Grant and Jason, of course, in 97, they'd give guys a hard time if they thought like they were going to have to miss something. And, a little pumpkin. They'd a little pumpkin. And so, as it turned out, we find one of those plastic jack-o'-lanterns.
That you go trick-or-treating with?
Yeah. And if you were going to miss practice, you had to carry that with a towel and a bottle of Gatorade in
I heard about that, yeah.
Grant had to miss one day, and he actually carried it. So you can imagine.
That's good. Like, yeah. And you hear, and we didn't like, and we can get it. We'll get into this. The transition and you talk about culture of a team and how good teams are successful because they have that culture, camaraderie, but the ability to press each other, not from a coach, but the ability to do that, to have that from the D-line room to say, you know what, nowadays it's hard because everyone's so sensitive, and people don't want to be viewed as, they want to be. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to be the dickhead. I don't want to be the, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be an asshole
I'm getting bullied.
Yeah, correct. And that's correct because I remember.
Didn't everybody get bullied?
Oh, we could go into this. It
used to be. Before bully was a big picked on.
Yeah.
You got picked on. Everybody got picked on. The best thing, learn what to do when you get picked on.
Right.
Not think you're going to keep everybody from getting. Everybody's going to get picked on. Teach them how to respond.
Well, we used to have the thing. We had. When back then when it was still the red shirts and the walk-ons were in the North Stadium.
Yeah.
You had the varsity. When you moved up, we had the whole
picked on.
There's a certain little.
But even just being at the North End, there's a stigma that you're a North End.
Yeah.
The conditions weren't very nice.
They're
up there.
awful.
But that weeded out. It's like the process would, you'd have the grind, you keep going through the process, but if you're showing up because there's a nice locker room and you have to be at the North End, you're going to flush out pretty fast, but you're there for the wrong reason.
Right. Yeah, that place
only got guys that wanted to be there.
That place was a dungeon. It was an old see-through steel metal lockers. There was no stalls in the shitters.
Paint peeling off.
The only benefit of having that locker room was when you went and practiced the old cook or out in the soccer field.
Shorter
it was
walk.
just a short walk too, and that was the only benefit.
Oh.
But yeah, now it's, you know,
There wasn't even air conditioning up there for a long time.
I don't think so. I
Not
mean,
for a
the
long time.
the couches that I remember taking naps on, who knows what kind of things were on there on that floor. I mean, there were so many times you're so tired that you just lay on that grungy floor. Who knows what were on those floors?
I don't know if anybody is old enough on this that would listen to this, but Walt Johnson, he was the equipment guy at the North End for a lot of years. His daughter Vicky still works down there at the stadium, but Walt would come off really gruff. But you know, the equipment guy, they get bothered a lot. They don't want somebody just coming, hey, can I get this, this, and that, whatever. But there's a story about a player comes up to the North End and his locker is cleaned out, emptied. And so he goes to the equipment window and he's like, Walt, where's my stuff? Where's my stuff at? And he says, gone, and so are you. Can you imagine? Oh, somebody really get their feelings hurt nowadays. It's changed.
It changed. It changed when I was there. I mean, I remember it changed when Callahan's staff came through. I mean, when you moved up from the north to the south, you had to go through a little ritual. And I was the last class that had to go through that. And depending on the ritual, depending on how well you were liked, or depending on what people were doing, that's just what happens. It had gone on for many, many years. And then that very next year, when Callahan got there with the 04, we were going to do it, but somehow he got word that was going to go on, and they put coaches in there. So we couldn't do it. And then it transitioned into, we gave the freshmen goofy haircuts. And then that had to stop because so-and-so called mom, and mom called Bill and complained.
Yeah.
And Bill doesn't want to deal with that crap, but honestly, it's like, hey, it's just part of the deal. But that's just how that's just the world that we've gotten into now is, mom and dad, their son's not getting treated fairly and nicely, and they think he should. Well,
wow. It was, long story short, in the day, it was a tough environment. And tough people survive in tough environments. So that's not all bad. I
can honestly say, like I said, I thought it was pretty big and bad and tough. I was soft. I became a man at Nebraska. It was tough, and I mean, there's certain situations I went through that prepared me for what I've done in life. I mean, I think everyone has that, but I mean, it was not easy, and it's I think it's gotten easier for the guys, but just to have those guys. I mean, put it this way, I was scared to death to get on the elevator with an upperclassman. I took the stairs all the time because they would do all sorts of things to you in the elevator going down from the coaches.
It's probably best we didn't know about some of that.
Yeah. It's just you learned, and that stuff is not going on. Thanks everyone to listening to the first part with Doak Ostergard on the More To It podcast. Be sure to tune in to the next episode. You're not going to want to miss it. A lot of good stories, a lot of good interactions, a lot of good talk with Doak and his time spent as head trainer at Nebraska.